This is the most excited I've been about a camera in a long time. Not just because this shoots 100 megapixels, and not because it's expensive or it looks cool and it's got chrome trim. I mean, damn. But because it's predominantly designed to be a waist level finder camera. The very kind of camera that has defined a certain style of street photography and documentary photography in the 20th century, and has been a signature of photographers like Vivian Maier, Gordon Parks, Diane Arbus, Janet Delaney, Larry Fink, Willie Ronis, Mario Carnicelli, and many more who prefer to take pictures looking down into a viewfinder. And the only camera being made today that follows in that tradition and that heritage is the Hasselblad 907X and CFV 100C. And I was lucky enough recently to get an email from Hasselblad asking if I would like to make a couple of videos about this camera, and in return I would get to keep it. And I'm excited to do that because I really, thank God, really enjoyed using this camera. I've used it in Manchester and London and Ireland. I've used it for street photography, portraits. I've used it on a recent commission, and I'm also excited to talk about it because I've got a bit of a history with waist level finder cameras. My first book is called Crossed with Care, and all of the pictures in this were taken with a waist level finder camera. I used TLRs, I used 645 cameras, and I shot from the waist, framing using a waist level finder. So my biggest inspiration to make that book was Vivian Maier. I remember seeing the documentary about the discovery of her work called Finding Vivian Maier around 2014 when I was first getting into street photography. And seeing her work really connected with me. There was something about how she used the waist level finder and shot from a low angle and seemed to do so very discreetly. Ordinary people looked monumental and were recorded with a delicate sensitivity and respect. And I loved them so much that I wanted to see if I could capture images like that. So I got a Yashica 124 TLR camera, and then later a Mamiya 645 Pro, and shot with them for a couple of years making my book. Now, obviously there's more to it than just the camera, but I think by seeing the world, by looking down into a viewfinder and framing from the waist, from your gut, it's a very different kind of photography. And some of the most beautiful pictures in the history of street photography and in the history of photography have been taken with waist level finder cameras. So that's why I love that style. And it's not just Vivian Maier, but all the photographers I listed earlier, especially Gordon Parks. I think Gordon Parks has taken some of the most beautiful pictures that have ever been taken. So that is to say, I'm excited to use this camera, and I'm excited to have used this camera for a couple of weeks. I'm really happy with the kind of pictures I'm getting from it. I love the color from it. I love the resolution. I love the dynamic range. There's a very filmic quality, and not just 35mm filmic quality, but that kind of like proper medium format filmic quality where there's just so much detail in the upper range of the information that you capture. And the color is so rich and pure. So like I said, I spent a couple of weeks with this in London and Manchester and recently Ireland. So let's take a look at what I got, and I'll talk about the experience of using this camera and what I like about the 907X CFV 100C. I think to say the least, this is a pretty unique design for a modern camera. Initially, I bought the grip for it thinking I wouldn't like the ergonomics, but after a couple of weeks of use, I rarely use the grip, and I prefer to use it in its smallest, modular, lightest state. Just holding the camera in one hand with my finger on the shutter button. It actually feels pretty comfortable, and I like having a full range of motion with it held at arm's reach. And then when I'm not using it, I just carry it over my shoulder. So as you probably have guessed already, yeah, this is a Hasselblad medium format sensor, so it's pretty wild. It's a 100 megapixel BSI CMOS sensor with 15 stops of dynamic range and shoots 16-bit RAW files in Hasselblad's own proprietary format. Now, I think that when you reduce a digital camera to its basic form, it's essentially a device for capturing information, and I've never seen a camera that captures more information. In my experience, that's reflected in just how easy the RAW files are to edit. I found it really easy to edit these files in Lightroom. I just drop my usual presets on there, and it's a very nice base to start with. They're probably the most pleasing raw files I've dealt with in Lightroom. They behave as expected. There's no strange color casts or white balance behaviors. However, to get the most out of your files, you can use Hasselblad's own focus software to get access to the Hasselblad natural color solution. And I'm not sure how to describe it. You know, when you get a scan back from a really good film lab and the colors just seem correct, like they've been adjusted by an expert, and they've just snapped into the kind of correct form. That's the kind of feeling I get when I load the raw files in Focus. Now, personally, I'm not looking for perfection in images, and I prefer my own workflow in Lightroom. But it's good to know that if I need critically accurate color, I can just pop the files into Focus and get that. I like how the screen tilts at 40 and 90 degrees. I probably have it at 90 degrees most of the time for that full waist level finder experience, looking straight down into the screen. Glare can be an issue on very sunny days, but you just have to find a shady spot, or you can always use a hood loop if it's a big issue. Well, damn, every camera should have 1 terabyte of storage from now on, because it's nice. It's just nice not having to think about SD cards or finding yourself in that horrible position of leaving the house, getting to your destination and realizing you forgot your SD card. So yeah, that's a very nice feature, and I think that's the way forward with cameras from now on. So I've got 2 lenses, and Hasselblad sent me the XCD55 f2.5, which is a 43mm equivalent on 35mm format. A couple of things I love about it. The resolution is insane. I mean, just look at it, for God's sake. It's got a manual focus clutch, which I've been using for zone focusing occasionally. The build quality feels really solid. It's also pretty tiny, considering it's a medium format lens. And the autofocus seems really good, considering the size of the sensor. I rarely have issues missing focus, and I'm shooting on the move a lot. I also have the 75mm, which I think is a newer lens, and I love the look of this lens. It's about 70mm equivalent, and it has so much character. I love it. So that's what I've been using, these 2 lenses. They're great. So those are my initial impressions of the Hasselblad 907X CFE 100C. After a couple of weeks of use. I love the images I'm getting from it. I like the experience of using it, and the waist level method of shooting feels really comfortable to me. So I guess if I had to end this on something, I'd like to talk about what I'd like to see in maybe the next iteration of this camera, or maybe a firmware update. So a couple of things I'd like to see would be, I'd love to see the addition of image preview adjustments. Like, for example, being able to see a real-time preview in black and white, or with some basic curve adjustments that you could customize. That would be super nice. And maybe that could come in a firmware update. Some kind of hood attachment would be cool for the screen. Just offer some kind of shade in really sunny environments. Maybe something clips onto the LCD screen and flips up, designed after the 500 cm hoods even. Something that looks kind of retro and cool. And then you could flip it down and it could protect the screen. That would be a cool little attachment to see. Or maybe no attachment and just a nano textured glass on the LCD display. That could solve most of the glare issues. So that's about it really. If you have any questions about this camera, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the pictures. Do you see any difference in these pictures to pictures I've taken with other cameras? I'll be curious to see that. Also, I never mentioned the square format. I'm really digging using square format on this thing and composing in square. It's really fun, and it reminds me of using TLR cameras as well. I should have mentioned that. I should have dug into the square format, maybe in the next video. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.